As promised, we have our study video ready to go. We have myself, and we have Will. Where are you?
Right here.
Let's see. Come on. Get
No,
in here.
I'm not getting in here.
Alright, he's having a little fun with me here, but. So, as long as they think we can hear you, we'll be good to go. So we're going to study the chapter on leads and nutgrass. And I'm going to post this up on YouTube following, and then I'm going to email the link out to Professor Delbert for those who want it. And anyone interested in journalism, you'll get to learn a little bit more about journalism studying and stuff like that for Journalism 101 at Los Angeles Valley College, taught this semester by Bill Delbert. So, without further ado, let's hand it off to my handy dandy partner, Will Mack.
Okay, so chapter 7, Leads and Nut Graphs. The lead is the beginning of the story that entices the reader. So why does renowned writing coach Don Fry write his leads? Most writers agonize over their leads, but Fry almost never worries about what he's going to say first. Fry says he begins the writing process long before he sits down at his computer. I'm imagining the story while I'm reporting it, he says. Fry concentrates on what he calls a point statement, also known as the focus graph or nut graph. He asks himself, what is the story about, and what is the point of the story? Any information that doesn't relate to the point statement doesn't get included in the story. And then he starts writing, not at the beginning, but at the paragraph containing the point statement. He continues writing until he gets to his ending, which he calls the kicker. Then he writes his lead. After that, he revises. The point statement, which is also known as the focus statement, may end up being the lead, or it will give you the idea for the lead. You may still prefer to write your stories by starting with the lead, as most writers do, but thinking about the focus of your story will first give you a better chance of writing a good lead. Mervyn Block, a leading writer coach for broadcast journalism, has similar advice. Think, don't write yet, just think. He says in his book, The Writing Broadcast News, think about what you want to say and how best to say it, clearly, concisely, and conversationally. Start strong, well begun is half done. The lead is crucial in any medium, especially these days when readers and viewers are bombarded with so much information from social media, print, broadcast, and online sources. Studies show that most online readers are scanners who just read headlines. How can your leads entice the readers, listeners, or viewers to continue? Take a clue from television teasers. Does the anchor tease you about a story that makes you stay tuned after the break? Leads should entice the reader to stay tuned into the rest of the story. Hard news, leads, soft leads, and nut graphs. The lead, originally spelled L-E-D to differentiate from lead type, tells the reader what the story is about. Think of the lead as a teaser or foreshadowing of what will come in the story. No matter what type of lead you write, you must back it up with information that substantiates it. If you haven't got material to support your lead, you have the wrong lead. First, determine the focus of the story. Ask yourself, what is the lead story about? What is the most important information? What is the point of the story? Those are the questions you need to ask yourself to write a lead or a nut graph. Sometimes nut graphs and leads are the same, sometimes they aren't. Here's how to tell the difference. Summary leads. Summary leads, also called hard news leads or direct leads, or direct lead. This type of lead summarizes in the first sentence what the story is about. A summary lead is usually only one sentence or two at most. It gets directly to the point. What the increasing use of cell phones, tablet computers, and other small screen devices for news reading, the summary lead is an ideal form. Summary leads also are useful in any type of media. Public relations practitioners use summary leads in news releases, which need to be brief and newsworthy. In these examples, note that the broadcast version uses present tense and a more current angle.
Quickly before we continue, I forgot to mention that what we're reading from is a book called
Writing and News Reporting.
Writing and News Reporting by
Carol Rich.
Carol Rich. I forgot to mention that before. Writing and News Reporting by Carol Rich. Back now to Wilmac.
Print version. A 20-year-old Franklin M. Marshall College student was shot a block from campus earlier this morning during an attempted robbery, police said. Broadcast or web version. A 20-year-old Franklin Marshall College student is in critical condition today after he was shot earlier this morning during an attempted robbery a block from campus. Nut graphs. Also called focus graph, the nut graph is a paragraph that explains the point of the story, what the story is about. A summary lead often tells that information and takes. The summary lead often tells that information and takes the place of a nut graph. In this example, the lead is purposely vague to entice readers to continue, and the nut graph is in the third paragraph. Example, the Alpha Gamma Rho fraternity president says it was a practical joke that got blown out of proportion. Police say it was a hazing incident that involved new AGR members preparing to have sex with a goat, and Western officials are still trying to determine if AGR members violated university policy by having a goat in their house that may have been used to intimidate new members. Soft leads. Also called feature leads or delayed leads. Soft leads can be several paragraphs long before the nut graph. They delay telling the reader what the story is about by teasing the reader with a description or a storytelling approach as the previous example. In these days of impatient readers and small screen delivery, the nut graph should be early in the story, usually by the third or fifth paragraph. Here is an example of a soft lead and nut graph. Soft lead, who, what? San Jose, California. A nervous flight attendant was having trouble taking a urine drug test, so she drank a glass of water, and another, and another. More what? After guzzling 3 liters in 3 hours, she still couldn't urinate. Where? But hours later, the 40-year-old woman staggered into a Burlingame, California hospital, her speech slurred, her thinking fuzzy. The diagnosis? She was drunk on water. The unidentified San Mateo County resident is the first drug test taker known to suffer from water intoxication. Doctors reported yesterday in the Journal of American Medical Association. There have been only 7 other reported cases of healthy people with dangerous condition which causes waterlogged brain cells and a dilution of body minerals. 1 died. How do you decide whether to use a direct or indirect lead? The choice depends on several factors: the significance of the news, the timing, proximity, interest to your local readers or viewers, subject matter, and in many cases, your editor's preferences. If the subject is serious, death, disaster, a major change in the law, consider a summary lead approach. Breaking news that happened yesterday or today also lends itself to hard news lead. Hard news leads. Summary leads. A summary lead should answer several but not all of the basic questions: who, what, when, where, and why, plus how and so what. If you can cram all of them into the lead, it could be cumbersome. Choose the most important factors for the lead. Save the others for second or third paragraph. This example stresses who and what, the most common type of summary lead. Who, what, when, why. Example, Tallahassee, Florida. A Florida law student was held Tuesday on a charge she hired a hitman to kill a secretary who found out the student had stolen an exam, police said. This example stresses who, what, and why. Washington, AP. The Federal Aviation Administration said Tuesday it would hire 12,500 new air traffic controllers over the next decade to offset a wave of looming retirements. Subject, verb, object order. Summary leads are most effective when they follow subject, verb, object order. who did what or what happened. This order is also favored for broadcast writing. The following lead, which works for print, broadcast, and online media, starts with who, what, why, and when. A 22-year-old Mesa resident is accused of offering an undercover police officer $1,000 to kill a woman who appeared on her boyfriend's MySpace.com webpage. Avoid writing long summary leads that begin with clauses, as in this example. Declaring that property owners must be protected from an arrogant government. House Republicans are nearing approval of legislation that would weaken federal efforts to protect wetlands and endangered species. This lead would have been clearer if it had begun by explaining who is doing what. House Republicans are nearing approval, so forth. Order of information. When you write a summary lead, how do you decide which basics to include and in what order? The points of emphasis should be the first or last words in the lead. Decide which elements are the most important: who, what, where, when, why, how, or so what. Usually it is safe to use a subject, verb, object format. Who did the action? What happened? To whom? But sometimes the how or why is most important. Here are some facts presented in the story. Who? 3 boaters. What happened? 2 killed, the 3rd injured when the boat capsized. When? Sunday. Where? Lake Harney near Volusia, Seminole County line in Florida. Why? High winds and waves. How? Explained later in the story. The lead that appeared in the newspaper stresses who first, followed by what. 2 boaters were killed and a 3rd was injured Sunday when their small boat capsized in high winds and waves on Lake Harney near Volusia, Seminole County line. Now look at the way the lead would read with different elements placed first. Example, what? A small boat that capsized in high winds and waves on Lake Harney near Volusia, Seminole County line caused the death of 2 boaters and injured to a 3rd Sunday. When? On Sunday, 2 boaters were killed and a 3rd was injured when their small boat capsized in high winds and waves on Lake Harney near Volusia, Seminole County line. Where? On Lake Harney, near the Volusia, Seminole County line, a small boat capsized Sunday in high winds and waves, causing the death of 2 boaters and injuries to a 3rd. Why? High winds and waves on Lake Harney near Volusia, Seminole County line caused a small boat to capsize Sunday, killing 2 boaters and injuring a 3rd. The actual lead from the newspaper seems more logical because the point of emphasis, the important news, boaters died, is first. The last lead, focusing on why, is the next best option. The point of emphasis, boaters died, is at the end. If you were writing that story for broadcast news, you would update the information and use the present tense. 2 boaters are dead and a 3rd is suffering from injuries caused when their small boat capsized today on Lake Harney near the Volusia, Seminole County line. Point of emphasis. Most of the time when you write a hard news lead, you'll put the most important information first. You might want the point of emphasis at the end of the sentence, as in this example. A consumer group said Thursday that some sunscreens and cosmetics contain an ingredient that can promote cancerous skin tumors, and it called on the government to halt their sale. Active versus passive voices. Active voice is generally preferable to passive in print and always preferred in broadcast writing. Active voice stresses who is doing the action. Passive voices stress those to whom the action is done. But you may need to use passive voice when the emphasis is on what happened instead of who caused it to happen, especially in police or court stories. Active voice is stronger for the following example. Because it emphasizes the iguana as the subject, for broadcast, put the attribution first. Active. A pet iguana started in a fire in a split-level house in Hillsmere Shores by knocking over a heat lamp with his tail, fire officials said. Passive. A fire in a split-level house in Hillsmer Shores was started by a pet iguana that knocked over a heat lamp with its tail, fire officials said. Broadcast version with attribution first, active voice. Fire officials say a pet iguana started a fire in a split-level house in Hillsmer Shores by knocking over a heat lamp with its tail. In the next example, however, passive voice is preferable because it gets to the point faster. Passive. A former employee of the University of Pennsylvania Van Pelt Library was sentenced to 7 years of psychiatric probation yesterday for the theft of $1,798,310 worth of rare books and documents. The sentence was imposed by Philadelphia Common Pleas Court Judge Russell M. Nigro, and this, as the story later explains. The emphasis in the lead is on the employee who was sentenced. Here is how the lead would sound in an active voice. Active. Philadelphia Common Pleas Court Judge Russell M. Nigro yesterday sentenced a former employee of the University of Pennsylvania's Van Pelt Library to 7 years of psychiatric probation for the theft of $1,798,310 worth of rare books and documents.
Okay, stop there for a second. We're going to cut this video into two because it's getting long here. So we'll see you in the next video.